Hello YouTube and welcome to Lonely Rider's channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Porsche 986. Lonely Rider is not a professional mechanic and is not responsible for any personal injury or vehicle damage that may result from individuals attempting the repair shown in this video. You have been warned. Try at your own risk. If you have a Porsche 986 and you've noticed that the heater in your car just does not seem to work at all, even if you turn it up to full blast in the wintertime, it never gets any warmer than maybe a little bit of lukewarm, and it just isn't putting heat into the car at all. And if you've noticed little chunks of foam coming out of your air ducts, then you, my friends, are another victim of German engineering. And this is another common problem with the Porsche 986. There are two metal plates that are down inside the dash of the car. When the driver selects the desired climate control on the screen, cold or warm or whatever, these metal flaps open and close and mix the air to achieve the desired temperature. In order for these flaps to do their job, they have to be able to completely block the air when they close all the way and to mix it properly. Problem: Porsche thought it would be a great idea to put big holes in these plates from the factory. Now, when the car is new, that's not a problem because they have foam glued over top of them from the factory, and that foam blocks those holes. But over time, that foam disintegrates and falls off the flaps, exposing the holes, and when that happens, the air passes right through the flap instead of being blocked by it, and the flaps can no longer do their job. This is such a chronic problem with the Porsche 986 and probably other models of Porsche, I'm not really sure, but pretty much every car that's in the world has this problem because all of these cars have gotten old by now and the foam is just completely disintegrated and completely fallen off the flaps. The good news is it's actually not that hard to fix, but you have to be able to disassemble the stereo portion of the dash to get behind it. Now, if you do a YouTube search of this fix, you will find lots of different opinions on how to fix it. A lot of people will tell you to pop open the hood of the car and to go in through the front of the car behind the battery and to disassemble the armatures for the windshield wipers and to take out the heater core and all that to get to it from the front of the car. Do not do this, and I'll explain why. One, it's completely unnecessary and it's a lot of work and it's very messy. Going in from this side of the car only gives you access to one of the flaps. It's pretty much impossible to reach the flap that's further in the car from this side of the car, even after tearing everything apart. However, going in through the stereo, even though you do have to cut a hole in your vent, going in behind the stereo gives you access to both of the flaps, so you can fix the entire problem from here without disassembling anything underneath the hood of your car. To begin, the first thing you're going to want to do, if you haven't done it already, is go ahead and retract the soft top because it's just easier to work in the car when the top is down. Now, you're going to want to get your auto trim removal kit if you haven't bought one already, and go ahead and pry this plastic piece off all the way around. You're going to want to make note of all these different connections in here, and you're going to want to remember which ones go which. You could even take a picture if you want to, and go ahead and pop all of those off. Now you got to pull pretty hard on these to get them to come off. Just got to wiggle them, and you got to be pretty forceful with it because they're on there pretty tight. Now you can get to the 4 screws. There's a T20 there, there, and up there. Go ahead and remove those screws. So basically there are these metal clips inside there. Don't know if you can see that. And what you have to do is reach in with a screwdriver and bend it down, and then you have to stick something in there in that little tiny hole inside of that metal clip there to hold it down so you can pull the stereo system out. And you have to kind of bend them both down with a flat tip screwdriver and stick some kind of small, like a long nail or something, into the little opening at the tip of them, and that holds those clips down so that it doesn't catch the dash. Then you can remove the unit from the dash. Let's see if this works. Aha! Eureka! See, here's the metal clips I was talking about. They're in the top and they catch they catch on the lip of the dash when you try to remove it. So you have to stick a little tiny metal tool into both of them. They'll have a little hole on the end of them, and you gotta use those tools to pull them down while pulling out so that it doesn't catch the top of the dash. Now in this case, I have an aftermarket stereo system, so my setup's probably a little bit different than yours. Now if you have a complete mess of cables behind yours like mine, I suggest you take a picture of it before you start unhooking stuff. Okay, now with all that junk out of the way, we're in business. Now that you've got everything opened up in here, basically the goal is to cut this plastic piece. You want to get yourself a nice brand new Stanley blade, preferably with a little bit of WD-40 on it, and we're just going to again start at the top, and we're just going to cut straight down this side, and we're going to cut straight down this side to make ourselves an access port to get into the flaps, which are behind this plastic piece. A little crooked on mine. Okay, we got a cut on one side. Now I got to do a cut as far over to this side as we can to give ourselves enough room to work inside there. I don't know if you can see this or not. It's kind of hard to keep the blade cutting the direction that you want. Once you get it going, you're good. It's just getting it started, it's a little hard. The plastic isn't that thick, which is the good news. Okay, now up to the top. All right, now that we have that cut, we're just gonna pull it down, and voila. See that? It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be covered in foam to block those holes up, but all the foam is completely gone. That's the problem with these cars. That's why your heater's not working. We're gonna get a piece of duct tape, and we are going to tape this flap down so that it stays out of our way. Hopefully the duct tape will hold that down so that we can work in here. Now that we've got that duct tape down, now we can start working inside there. Now you can see there is a good bit of plastic that's in our way, so this is a little bit of a tricky job to do, but it can be done. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put some tape over the first one there in the front, and then we're going to turn on the climate control system and turn it, I think, down to get that flap to open out of our way so we can get to the one that's behind it. There's another one behind it there, down inside. I don't know if you can see that. It's down inside there pretty good. Now there are already a lot of good videos on YouTube on how to do this, one of which that I watched before doing this was Help Me DIY. He did this repair on his video, but I figured, hey, I might as well just make another video because you don't know, some person might catch something important that the other person didn't that might help somebody. So, you know, you can never have too many videos on a subject, so I figured I'd go ahead and film it. But on Help Me DIY, he recommended using some metallic tape. And I think the reason was because metallic tape is more rigid. It doesn't have a tendency to want to curl up on you, so it makes it easier for reaching in there by hand or with a tool and applying the tape to the flaps. So we're going to give that a shot. Another reason why this is a good tape to use is that this tape is actually cold weather rated, which means it actually resists like refrigeration and things like that. So whenever you turn the AC way down and the flaps get really cold, this tape will be resistant to peeling off of them and falling off like other tape might do. There you can see down to the bottom right there. So we're at just about 7 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my piece of tape a little bit shorter than that, because you don't want the edge of the tape catching the top or the bottom of the vent and getting the flap wedge when it's trying to move. So there it is. Now you can see on this side over here, I missed a little bit of the edge of the holes on this side, so I might cut off a little tiny sliver of tape and just put on this side to cover up those little bits there that I didn't quite catch. But basically that's what you're shooting for. You're just shooting to cover up the plate holes with the tape and to make them airtight again so that they can do their job again. Now also down here, again, I cut the tape a little bit shorter than the flap because I did not want it to catch the top or the bottom of the vent and get the flap wedged. So you want to make sure you don't make the tape too long, and you want to make sure that you do a test when you're done to make sure they still open and close normally. If they snag on anything, you're going to have to fix that. And there it is, all nice and sealed up. Okay, now that we got the first flap done, now in order to get access to the second flap, we have to turn our ignition on. There we go. And we have to actually turn our climate control all the way as cold as it will go. And that opens sesame. That opens the flap to give you access to the second flap that you gotta fix down inside there. And then shut the key off. There. So there it is. There's the second flap that you gotta get to, and you're pretty much gonna do the same thing. Now you can see it's not completely flat. It actually has a bend in it, but you gotta get the ones covered there on the left side, that little tiny piece on the left where you see some of that foam stuck there, all the way top to bottom, and then you got to get the flat portion on the right. So this is a little bit more tricky, and of course it's further down in the car. You got to get that flap, and then you're done. And then it's just a matter of reassembling the car. Okay, I got that side piece on, but I made my tape a little short. It looks like that. Looks like this flap might be a little bit taller than the other flaps, so I have to make my. Looks like I have to make my tape maybe, I don't know, maybe a ½ inch longer or something. But I got to cover that little bottom piece there with a little piece, and then I can turn my attention to the big portion, which should be easier, I'm hoping. Okay, for this one, I taped my tape onto my little magnet extension rod here. I'm going to see if I can use this to kind of just push it back in there enough to get it started, and then reach in with my hand and put it on the rest of the way. There's another one started. So I think maybe one more piece like that on this side, and that should just about do it. And then of course a little piece down there that I missed. You can see I got a little close to the edge there. I just got to make sure that that doesn't snag. But that pretty much covers all of the holes. Pretty much goes from top to bottom. It was a little tricky getting it in here, but if you're patient and take your time, you can get it on there. I might see if I can still get maybe that little piece right there. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Okay, so we're done. I got everything all taped up. Now we're going to turn the key on. We're going to make sure they both open and close like they're supposed to and nothing gets snagged. And then we're going to start reassembling everything, put the stereo back in. We're going to tape this piece back up here, but we're going to use black duct tape so that it's not quite so visible. But after you get the stereo hooked back up and everything put back in, everything you've done here won't be visible to anybody in the car. It's going to be completely all hidden, which is the nice thing about it. So let's go ahead and do a power on test. Okay, it looks like we're good. Now we can start reassembling everything. So we're going to push that back up like that, and we're just going to tape it on, because if something were to happen and the tape that you put on those flaps falls off, or a flap gets snagged and then gets stuck or something, or for whatever reason you got to get back in here, if you glue it or something like that, you're just going to have to recut everything. But if you just put some black tape on there to hold it up there, if you have to get back in here in the future, all you got to do is take the tape off. Could you imagine somebody doing this to their Ferrari? And voila, you can't even tell anything happened. Now we gotta hook up the stereo and reassemble everything back into the dash. After you get your stereo system all hooked up in the back, go ahead and tuck all the cables back down inside there and slide your stereo in. Now before you push this down inside, you gotta make sure you put these connectors back through these holes here to go into their connectors before you push this whole thing back up into the dash. Now at this point it's a good idea, because there's so many cables back in there and trying to shove everything out of the way to get this back in, you might have unplugged the cable out of your stereo in the back. So at this point, before you go any further, it's a good idea just to turn the key on and give your stereo a good test to make sure that everything seems to be like it's hooked up and you didn't lose a speaker or something like that before you put the rest of this together. It should just slide in. If you hear it clip in, it should be into place. After you put the vent back in and you got your 4 T20 screws here, and here back in, and you got it bolted back on and you've confirmed that the stereo and all works, go ahead and get your faceplate, plug your connections back into the faceplate and snap the faceplate back on. And that's it. Now you just got to go through, of course, turn your car on and make sure all your buttons work and make sure everything works like it's supposed to. And then, of course, go out and test your climate control and make sure you've actually got heat and air conditioning now. And then you're done. Well, that is it for the Porsche 986 for fixing your flaps. As you can see, going in through the dash is definitely the way to go. And that's it. Now, this job took me about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but that's because I was filming. So if you do this job and you're not trying to film it, you probably can do it somewhere between 1 to 2 hours, somewhere in there, as long as you got the right stuff you need and as long as you don't run into some kind of a snag. Okay? Catch you guys later.